Hello, and a very happy new year to you, and welcome back to Edie's Susty Talk. This is our video interview series that we launched all the way back last spring in the first throes of the UK lockdown to keep you all feeling connected to sustainability experts and to keep the conversation flowing. And now, ahead of our Sustainability Leaders Forum in early February, I'm delighted to have a number of our expert speakers on for us. And for today, I am talking to Therese from the Coca-Cola Company. How are you doing?
Well, great. Hi, good to see you and Happy New Year. And thank you for having me. Yeah.
Anytime, and really looking forward to your session. And sad, obviously, that it can't be in person. I understand that you're not in the UK at the moment and haven't been for a little while.
No, it's actually strange not having traveled for such a long time. It's very sustainable when it comes to an environmental point of view, but maybe less sustainable from a personal human interaction point of view, where it's just very enjoyable to meet like-minded people, be inspired. And I always loved coming into the edie conferences in the past, but who knows, maybe we'll be back in London or another place later on this year. So really looking forward to that.
Fingers crossed. And what has it been like in your role over the past couple of months? I know that you obviously oversee work across Europe, so there's lots of different restrictions and conversations to deal with, and also that food and beverage is essential and has had to carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, it has been challenging for everybody on a personal and at business level. But I think we've really pivoted quite fast when everything happened, obviously through waves, and we had to adjust. And as you said, being responsible for sustainability in Europe with many differences, restrictions, different waves at different moments, it was interesting and challenging, of course, to keep on working with our people on the ground, with our system partners, our butlers, but also other partners like the Red Cross that we partner with across many countries in Europe. So it has been interesting, it has been challenging, and it has been inspirational from a point of view that it has been inspiring to work very closely together, though remote, working closely with partners that help to make a difference, specifically in those first waves, where we reached out to our communities and supported them with medical supplies, drinks, everything that we could do through, for example, the Red Cross and others, to make sure we reach out and support our communities after, of course, making sure our own staff and employees are okay and safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen so many, like, I don't want to say last minute, but just social sustainability campaigns that really just came out of nowhere and grew massively. And at the beginning, in these first waves, there was this sort of fear that, oh, what would happen to the environmental side of things? But I was taking a look back for like a year in review and realised there had been some major announcements. And I think one that stood out for me for your business is that CSEP, which is the main bottler in Europe, made a commitment to net zero by 2040. So I thought it would be good to
Right.
touch on sort of how the main company entity works with bottlers to deliver on that, and what's going to be happening in Europe to help that target be met.
Yeah, sure. No, happy to. I think one of the great things that also came out through this pandemic and all the adjustments is our global and regional, so European commitment to stay focused and connected on our sustainability agenda, whether that's on World Without Waste, so connecting to packaging or climate or water, or the more social sustainability agenda, as we just briefly touched upon. And so working with our bottling partners, and for Western Europe, that's CCP, as you alluded to, it has been great to just keep on pushing on our packaging agenda, and specifically on the climate announcements that came out at the start of December last year, so only some weeks ago, really stating an important target towards 2040 and having very strong commitments there. And to your question, how we work as the Coke company with our bottlers is that we genuinely set those kind of climate or water or packaging related targets at a global level. And then we start working to implement them at regional level. And that's where the rubber hits the road, of course, where we start to work with our bottling partners and, of course, all other partners within our supply and value chain and social partners to deliver together with customers. So take climate and take the CCP announcement. This is a system announcement, but of course, CCP here is a very important partner to deliver as much goes through their direct operations. And so we both had the ambition to really step forward with a strong climate agreement. And they really helped design and shape that for their business and their operations in Western Europe with all our support. And now it's time to really roll that out and make that happen. And everybody will do that within their own remit. So, of course, there's elements that are more directly connected to the bottling operations, to the plants, to the logistics. But of course, there are also elements, for example, when it comes to ingredients and more, let's say, regional or global developments when it comes to refrigeration and developments there and improvements in packaging and different ways of packaging that we as a Coke company take care of. So it's really a joint connection and a joint system where we put out commitments, again, at global level and then at regional level. And we can go faster if we want to at regional level, and then start implementing them and really trying to find the sweet spots within the different operations and elements that we both can take care of. So it's actually really exciting to put the strength of both sides of the system, as we call it, into play to help accelerate and move forward on such important topic like climate.
For sure. I do feel like a lot of the discussions now are like we're not having problems setting the target. It's we now need to deliver it, and we need to identify
Absolutely.
how and where to go. And you touched on some really important things there, like logistics, like the bottling plants, and like the ingredients and the supply chain as well. And I know there was also, I was looking back through the news archives ahead of our call. And one of the other big announcements from Coca-Cola in this year just passed was this commitment to join the UN Global Compact CEO water mandate, which is also another thing that's super important for supply chains. And the mandate eventually actually has this overarching vision of net water positivity. So what does that mean for your team and your work in Europe? Because I don't know about you, when I look up pictures of water stress, I get so many images of like Africa and Asia, but what does that look like in Europe for yourself?
Yeah, so great question, and absolutely a great topic, very important topic, maybe a little bit more hidden, or for Europeans, most of the times, as you say, not top of mind. However, we are seeing that it's becoming more top of mind, and rightfully so, because if climate change is really the shark, then water are its teeth, right? It's a famous quote. And so what does that look like into our European operations? It means that we start from the data and really understanding where are the risks, both at a watershed level, but also at a operational and reputational level. So really understanding what's happening where. And by doing that exercise also with external experts, we have seen that water stress and water quality issues are indeed very lively in Europe. So this is not a question of only Africa or maybe other countries and continents outside of Europe. It's really much a thing happening in Europe. But it might be less visible yet. But if you start then tapping into it or talking to people saying, well, longer droughts or heavy floods, then everybody, also UK-based people, say, "Oh yeah, I understand. I've lived through it myself, or I had to water my garden a lot more. Or, oh yes, the potatoes were much smaller. I've read about that in the newspaper, right?" So, I guess everybody at their own level is starting to see the impact from climate through water, and then the impacts, for example, on ingredients. So where we are now is that we have started to map all the risks across Europe. We're nearly done to then build our renewed water strategy, as we call it, that will still be very much anchored into replenishment as it was in our previous water strategy, but there will be other elements in there as well. So our water strategy will really be a strong stepping stone and an important connector also to our climate strategy, but also to our strategy on sustainable agriculture, for example, to really anchor that and make sure we focus on the right things, we focus on the right risks and dampening them, collaborating with our partners at local level in the region, also policymakers, to make sure we get to a positive level of water, as you mentioned. So this is an absolute global focus point. We've been very strong on water, and it will be a very important point for us to drive forward in Europe.
Fantastic. And I think it's something we're seeing more of, because just looking at the signatures of that mandate, there's dozens of them. Microsoft springs to mind. So will there also be that form of collaboration?
Absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that we have always tried and pull off those kind of collaborations. And also last year, during the first wave of the pandemic, we as a Coke company, together with our two main bottlers in Europe, we led a coalition to support the Water Framework Directive, which was under discussion then. And so we pulled a group of 23 companies together to support the Water Framework Directive, from Heineken to Veolia to smaller businesses from all kinds of industries. So not only food and beverage, to really make sure that an important policy framework like the Water Framework Directive is at EU level would be kept and unchanged and would start to really be implemented well. That's, of course, also our responsibility at local level, but also of the member states. So building coalitions of the willing, either through traditional platforms that we already gathered in, or through specific platforms that we even help lead, like we did last year, is absolutely something that finds a place in that strategy.
Mm-hmm. I feel like collaboration is definitely going to be a big buzzword for 2021. I can feel it.
No, absolutely. I think if you think of a more sustainable world, and in the end, that's what we all want, whether you're in business or in policy or just a parent, that's where we need to go. And everybody reckons it's not something you can just achieve on your own. So that's both the beauty and the challenge, I think, that this is really about connecting together and finding the right momentum and right elements to really make progress, because I guess it will never be perfect, but at least you can get progress over progress, which will lead to better and closer to perfect than where we are today.
Fantastic. And we've covered so much there. We've gone from social sustainability to climate to water and about the links between them. But I couldn't get Coca-Cola on the phone and not mention packaging, which I know you mentioned as part of the climate plan as well. So I wanted to touch base and get a feel on what's happening here. It feels like there's some exciting stuff coming up. So obviously Loop's just launched here in the UK where I am, and I know that there's refillable sodas that you can get through that. But just more broadly, what's on the horizon for this year that you can tell us about?
Yeah, great. So packaging is definitely one of our main pillars and focus points when it comes to sustainability. So we operate under the ambition of World Without Waste across Europe. For Western Europe, we have some specific commitments also linked to This Is Forward and a timeline of 2025, and that's actually really around the corner. So what we will continue to do is really push forward on building circular economy. Now that means creating a market and a right working system for collecting our packages 100%. So every bottle, can, pouch, doesn't matter. We all want it back to then repurpose. So the best way of repurposing it is putting that material back in a new bottle or a can. But also, as you mentioned, refillables is hugely important. So packageless solutions dispensed, and see how and where we can expand that in a sustainable way. So also being mindful of water use, of carbon footprint, those kind of elements. I think other exciting stuff is to be expected in the area which we call innovation. So that's around innovation of current packages. For example, bringing more rPET, so recycled PET, into the packs. Like we've done last year, we've had a number of countries launch and transition into 100% rPET fully. So their full portfolio, not only a brand, but for example, in the Netherlands or in Sweden or Norway, there's only 100% recycled PET bottles on the market if you buy anything from Coca-Cola and our total portfolio. So that will definitely be an innovation and a transition that will continue to push, but also innovation in making other new packaging more sustainable or sustainable offerings. So also last year we talked about the paper bottle, and that's a huge program or project that we're involved in together with others. Also, again, collaboration. But that's something that we'll continue to work on and develop and explore. So there's a lot in this area that also just needs exploring. We would wish for it to be ready in a heartbeat and then just bring it to market. But it's not the reality. And from a sustainability point of view, I do think it's hugely interesting and exciting to be so close to all these developments that try to bring forward better, more sustainable packaging than we might have today, ticking the box not only in the pillar of packaging, but also to those other sustainability elements that we just talked about. Because again, we need to be mindful of the consumer. A consumer does not only want less plastic or a lighter pack or whatever. They also want a pack that is good for the environment as a whole, and also for the people who have worked around it. So there's a social component. So I think that's maybe an additional challenge, but we are ready for it and have been working on it. That I think is just exciting to keep on working on. So lots of things that we will continue to do, maybe not new, but you will definitely see some spikes and some introductions or some explorations from our side, as it's just part of the wider World Without Waste packaging journey.
Thank you. I know there's probably so many pillars to that, so thank you for a really brief and sweeping overview. And I'm really aware that we're nearly out of time on our meeting. It's absolutely flown by, but there is just one question that we're asking everyone that comes on in January that I'd love to finish with. So we're asking everyone for their professional New Year's resolution. I'm not talking about eating less chocolate or getting on the exercise size bike.
Okay. Well, I think the professional commitment I made is to help make a difference in with some younger professionals. So in the past, I've mentored people, and I would love to continue doing that. Not only because it's great to work with younger professionals, young people, and to help them advance in their career, but also as inspiration for me and to understand where they are and how I can learn from that. So I think it's a win-win. So my professional commitment is do a little bit more training and mentoring than I've been able to do last year because of all the changes, because of all the pressure and other things. But I definitely want to free up more time. Also, again, as it's fun, but also good for that social sustainability component. And I'm absolutely convinced that that's one of the elements that we need to embrace moving forward.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. I think we're all a bit used to digital working now, and would be happy to maybe do a digital mentoring. I know I've just joined a digital book club, which I never thought would be a thing even a couple of years ago. So best of luck with that.
Yeah.
And that's the last question that we have time for. But if you've enjoyed listening to Therese, she will be appearing, as I mentioned, at the forum, which is running from February 2nd through 4th, and she's appearing on day 2, so that's the 3rd of February, in a breakout session called Campaigns for Change, which will be asking, what does a meaningful consumer campaign look like, and how can you summon an army of changemakers within your business? So if you're interested in that, visit event.edie.net/forum for more information, and I look forward to seeing you there, Therese.
I look forward to seeing you there and all of you there. So until then.